Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Listeners and viewers, welcome to another episode of Playbook of the Wealthy. My name is Dave Grant. Your co-host is Heather Townsend. And today we're talking about setting yourself up for a wealthy 2025 only if you're retired or in financial freedom. And we'll cover the difference between those two. If you've not listened to our podcast before, we split our podcast into 4 sections. You learn about us professionally, personally. We dive deep into content, and then we answer some questions. Before we do that, there's 2 things that we have to cover because we're like that. So if you're listening or viewing, pause your show, subscribe, follow, like, comment, anything you need to do to make sure that we grow, we reach more people, we can share our knowledge and help others. And then because we're financial professionals, we do have disclaimers. So
can I read the disclaimer today and try to do it really fast?
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Set.
Can I do it? Yeah?
Go.
All opinions expressed by Dave Grant and Heather Townsend are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the views of their respective wealth management firms. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Nothing in this material constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Clients of Retirement Matters and Townsend Financial may maintain positions in the securities discussed at this podcast. Did I do that fast?
Wow. Someone just earned themselves a new job. You didn't fluff it. You didn't make any. Yes.
Did I sound like those like prescription commercials, like on the TV? I tried.
You did. It's like, make sure your doctor prescribes you this. Here are the side effects. And then you just went, and it was great.
Yes.
It was so long.
But, we've gotten feedback. It's the most boring part of the podcast. And I'm like, the prescription companies can do it. And that disclaimer still stands just to keep our compliance officers happy. But I just want to do it fast. I'm glad I will take the new job. It was kind of fun.
I liked it. I would listen to that disclaimer all day. So thank you. All right. First section of our podcast. It is dedicated to the one and only Joey Tribbiani from Friends, and it's called How You Doing? So Heather, professionally, how are you doing?
Please go first. Can you go first?
Okay. It is 12:30 in the afternoon, and I just want to go home. Being that my to-do list grows by 5 things every day, and it's tax season, and I'm just very overwhelmed. And that's even with having help now from the agency that I hired and then their staff that they bring in who've taken stuff off my list. So I am in that case of, I think it's just because it's tax season and investment review season from last year. And it's just a case of, wow, this is the season where I bulk a lot of my work together. Like I do it in the, September through November and then January through the end of March. But I'm feeling it right now. Like I'm losing sleep, I'll tell you that.
I wish I could say that I'm not in that position, but that is exactly where I'm in that position. But also mine's a little more detailed. I go really above and beyond for clients on the tax piece, like pulling it together because I am a CPA and I quarterback it a lot with the CPAs I work with. And clients that have never had a financial advisor like this, I don't think they realize the length that I go to that's not standard. And so I'm just dealing with a lot of, maybe I didn't set the expectations right. But it seems like, and I haven't been in this place, I think it's so weird, but there's a few clients that just don't seem pleased, and that really I take to heart. And it's over things that are already me going above and beyond. And it's not actually me, but it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's I'm just I already work so hard. I want to curl up in a ball like you. And I know I'll get through it. I know I have to have some, I'm one with my clients where I set expectations. I'm very blunt. I'm like, hey, let's just talk about it. And I have to set expectations again and be like, hey, is this going to work or is this not? But it's not fun. And the to-do list is growing. And yeah, it's just a little disheartening when you go above and beyond for clients and then they don't even know. They don't know how good they have it unless they go elsewhere, right? And so, and I don't want to stick on that, but still it's frustrating. I don't know how to say that.
No, it is. Yeah, I think when people don't have the frame of reference of, okay, you're just an advisor, you do a certain job. It was like, no, some advisors do a really, really good job. And unless you've been with a bad one, you don't know what a good job is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably, again, there's something that got mismatched in expectations that I did not clearly state that, hey, I'm already doing this. And this is not even in the scope of what I should be doing. And that's really on me.
Yeah.
Dun,
On that
dun,
note, 50% of viewers have left your podcast.
Way to bring this down. I know, I'm normally such a positive person, right? Like, I know.
All right, so let's jump into our content.
Oh, no.
This is Let's Dive In. So we are talking about people who are retired and how to make this year better than last year. And the way you do that is you're just going to review some things. And if everything's set up perfectly, that's great. If not, then there's some adjustments that need to be made. So, we're financial professionals, so we kind of look at kind of lives from different financial lenses. Me personally, I like to look at the big picture first before diving into the granular details. Heather, do you do that too?
Oh, we have to start at the big picture. I think if you start at the details first, you miss everything. The big picture tells you what to do with the details, what to make of the details, right?
Good. Yeah. So I think if you're retired, I typically like to have people reflect on, okay, look at the last year in general. It can be 2 years, it can be 1 year. But ask yourself, is this what I thought retirement was going to be? If it's yes, great. Keep going. Think about how you could make it better than what it's going to be. But if it's no, then it's going to be, okay, well, if I know the answer, what do I need to change? And then you can start working on that. Or what has not made this as fulfilling as I thought it would be? Or what is making me unhappy? If you know the answer, that's an easy fix. If you don't know the answer, that makes it a little bit harder. And so that takes into that self-discovery phase of, okay, what did I think retirement was going to be? How did I think I was going to feel? What did I think my days were going to be involved with? And, my sense of purpose and all of that. And that's when you say, okay, it's not working how I thought. What could I be doing different to try and get to that place where I think I would be happier?
What a fantastic question that I'm stealing. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
This, I sometimes see on people's faces when they walk in the door for a meeting. I can tell that things aren't going the way they thought. Others bounce in the room and they're like, cool, can we make this meeting quick? Because I have other things that are fun to do today and I'd rather be doing those. I'm like, of course, get out of here. Like, I'm here when you need me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, if you wanted something concrete to do and kind of go through this process is, okay, what are your bucket items for this year? Because, if you're in the early stages of retirement, this is the perfect time to say, okay, I wanted to do these things in my life. I've now got all the time in the world. What are they? And how are you going to achieve those?
Yes. And it's like, I encourage my clients, especially if they're in their 60s, late 50s, like, travel now. This is when you need to travel. Like, because, I'm sure you've also seen it. I think you talked about it previously with one of your clients. Like, health things can come up that can derail the bucket list. So if you're healthy, you're feeling good now, do it now. Do it now. This is when I also expect in my plans, it's like the smile approach, right? This is when they're going to have the highest spending. I plan for that.
Yes. I agree. If I sometimes tell people, if you think you're spending too much money, that's good. That's okay. That's probably because you are. And as long as it's got some intent and thought behind it, and I'm making sure that I'm aware of it, and it's still within some boundaries, please do it. I want you to spend money now because you've worked your whole career to save it.
Yep.
It's pointless if you just sit on it and say, I'm scared of losing it. We're all losing it. We're all dying. Please spend it.
Yeah.
Again, 25% of viewers left because I said we're all dying. Great.
No. And I mean, I don't know about you. I do it in my annual review. I don't do all these meetings in January. I couldn't. So I do an annual review. And on the annual spending, we also discuss, right? Like you talk into the big picture, you see what your bucket list items are. You also see what you spent last year. I know you probably do the same. Review where is the market today? How is it done in the last year? What was inflation?
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to increase spending based on inflation? Then also review with real expenses of the clients. Like, okay, let's say inflation was 3%. Sure, we can increase your monthly withdrawal or quarterly withdrawal, whatever we do. That's actually a good question for you. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But 3%. But also, can you go back to your cash flow sheet? Because remember, I don't call it a budget. Cash flow sheet, and let's actually review your actual expenses and what's changed. For example, right, we all know auto and home insurance went up for all our clients, right? Like, let's put in those new numbers. Property taxes, did those go up? And then we kind of like it's I feel like I put on a completely different side of my brain when I am dealing with my financial freedom clients than I am with my asset accumulators. Like, it's an entirely different, it's like an art. And I feel like, so then I'm like, okay, well, inflation went up this, but this is actually what your expenses are. Are these in line, or are we at different numbers? Do we need to increase more? What's our guardrail? Look at Income Lab, right? Our nerdy software that tells us what's safe to spend at what portfolio rates. Where's probability of success? Like, I feel like I run it through so many things to come up with this, like, I seriously think it's an art, like this pretty number that works within the plan based on where they want to live and keeps them safe. It's an art. That's what I'm going to call it.
It is. You're right. I agree with you. The conversation definitely changes between if people are working, if they're retired, when we're talking about the money. Did you want to talk about monthly versus quarterly now, or do you want to tackle that later? I typically like to set it up so people, they've got a paycheck throughout their career. Now they've got a paycheck in retirement. So I'm doing monthly withdrawals and just dropping it into their checking account based on the annual number that we agree with.
You drop it monthly, though. You are sending it to them monthly.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
Just for living expenses.
Same. And you know what's funny? I was talking to another advisor that I greatly respect, and he was like, Heather, you are causing too much work for yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I know. This is extra work, right? Because I actually go through, you're going to think I'm nuts. I go through my little like investment allocation, like bucket thing. I review, reallocate like every month. Now, luckily I have help now who definitely helps put in all those numbers, but I know you're going to, but like, it's my art. Mm-hmm. I love it. I'm very detailed, but I'm nuts. Like, and so I'm not really pulling from the cash. If the market is really high, I am pulling from the equities. I'm not taking from the cash bucket.
For someone who's listening, who's doing this by themselves, let's talk about rebalancing, but in more of a general scope of, so if you are managing your own investments in retirement, rebalancing is where you're looking at your portfolio. And if you've gone through the last 2 years where the S&P's gone up 20% each year, you're going to find that your portfolio has shifted. So if your target portfolio was, typical retirement of 60% in equities, 40% in bonds, you may find that it's shifted. And now it's 75% in equities, and you're very much overweighted and outside of where your target was supposed to be. That's where you need to sell some of those things that have done really well and buy things that are lagging behind and bring it back to that 60-40 target. So that's what we're talking about with rebalancing. It pretty much just makes sure that you're taking the same amount of risk that you initially wanted to and adjusting it for what the market may have done in that time period.
It's so interesting how our brains work. I look at it as like the buckets, and I'm like, okay, where are we with our buckets? Where can I pull based on the market? And I don't even think of my financial freedom clients anymore as in like a 60-40, 75-25. I'm like, how much do we have 1 to 2 years in cash? Do we have their, 4 to 5 to 6 years in fixed income, whatever it is? Okay, the rest, like, where are we? Like, how are we allocating those equities, and where can I pull from the markets up?
I think there's definitely pros and cons to doing that every month.
I know.
Because there's also, and if you're a nerd listening, like we are talking, you've also got the momentum effect, which is, do you let stocks that are doing well, how long do you let them ride?
Yeah.
Because if you start cutting them off at the knees the whole time while they're growing, you're not going to get the return. Again, there's no science. It's an art as to how long you let it ride. But yeah, if you're interested, go read about the momentum effects and go read about the bucket income strategy. And these are all the things that you can put in play for retirement income.
Wait, so I got to ask though. So if they have, so are you taking the stock then and making, let's say they want 2 years in cash of living expenses, right, for their bucket?
Mm-hmm.
If you're going into the next year where you're going to pull their monthly retirement income from, are you building 3 years so you have, so that if the market does crash, you still have 2, like after you get through the year of sending them? So are you building extra cash and then letting everything ride?
So situational specific, just depending on who these people are. But I would say I am not actively looking at it like you are every month. I'm taking it from a more, 12-month perspective of, did equities do well? But then I also rebalance quarterly. Yeah. So while these buckets are working, if assets have gone up in a quarter, then I'm taking profits from that. And most likely moving it into fixed income. So those are the 2 buckets that I'm really rebalancing. Mm-hmm. And then once we've gone through a year of cash, we'll look at the portfolio and figure out, most likely I'm taking it from a short-term bond because my equities would be refilling my bond bucket. And then I'm going to take some short-term bonds and take it to cash. All right, listener, please wake up. We'll get things back from the non-nerd side right now. If you're looking at where your money is coming from this year, yes, you need to be aware of where your accounts are. So if it's very much lopsided in retirement, you're going to be pulling and paying taxes on that. If it's lopsided towards a taxable account, you essentially make your own rules with taxes because you can choose to sell or just use cash. Mm-hmm. But you have to be intentional here. So I think when you're looking at your taxes, so we're kind of in the year where, the time of year, if you're listening to this currently, where people are getting ready to file their taxes. They're going to be getting 1099s. And they're going to be seeing, okay, based on what I did last year, did that make for a tax bill I can stomach? Mm-hmm. If yes, fine. Your strategy is working for you for the most part. There might be some things you can tweak. But if it's too high or too low, then you probably need to change your tax strategy and where your income's coming from. So if it's too low, yes, it's a problem. It's a weird problem to have, but it is actually a problem because you are torpedoing yourself in later life. Because the less taxes you pay now, potentially more you pay later. The reverse, if you pay a lot of taxes now, either your income strategy might not be as good as it should be, or you're paying more taxes now when you could actually spread it out and pay less over your retirement. We don't have time to go into the weeds here.
No, that's also assuming, which is so funny, which is why this is an art, that like tax rates stay the same. I mean, right now with our current president, he's trying to abolish the IRS. I will say, I don't think that that's going to happen. Knowing some numbers, again, I'm not in the government and I would come down to wanting a lot of models, but I don't think with tariffs and eliminating some stuff, I don't think we can come up with what the IRS collects. But of course, it's a fantastic idea. I do think we need to clean up the tax code. It's way too complicated. But point being is, a lot of this is also risk tolerance. It's to go with Roth conversions. So many, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say this, and I don't know, we might get some haters now, but so many financial advisors are like, Roth conversions, Roth conversions, Roth conversions, do them. The tax rate's going to go up. Like, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is ending. Do them. I run at an income lab, and the break even is 22 years from now for most of my clients. 22 years. I give it to them. I'm like, if you live past 22 years, you break even, you're on the other side. And this is also assuming that tax rates go back to what they were after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I will also bet that there is going to be a tax bill on the floor this year. The tax bill will be changing. Just the tax code, just a guess. Okay. We have no idea where tax rates are going to be over the next 22 years. So to make that bet, most of my clients are actually like, no, I don't want to do Roth conversions. Now, I should also preference most of my clients don't have most of their retirement assets in pre-tax IRAs, right? If you have that, different situation. I think you do. My clients have a very tax diversified portfolio. They have Roth, they have brokerage, they have pre-tax. Some of them even have HSA. It's beautiful. But in that case, I just don't think the Roth conversion strategy that financial advisors are saying must do is as cut and dry as they make it seem. It's not that simple. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
Yes. There is a lot of factors with Roth conversions. Because one thing that happens that a lot of advisors do not talk about is it's going to change Medicare for you. And that's going to affect your Medicare B premiums if you're too aggressive with your Roth conversions. Mm-hmm. So again, if you're going to get nerdy, it's called IRMAA. So it's the income related monthly adjustment amount. And you don't need to know about that, but you're going to feel it when you get that Medicare premium hit your mailbox and it more than doubled. And the only reason is because you took too much out of your IRA. And then you're like,
and those are yes. And those are the things like we're also watching, right? I'm watching IRMAA adjustment, or most of my clients aren't actually in Medicare that are in financial freedom yet, but we have a 2-year look back period, right? So like when they're 63, that's when you start having to consider that to not keep them out of it. Then you also want to not get them a net investment tax, which is, 200, I think single 250 joint. If they have income over that, they're paying a 3.8% extra tax on dividends and, like dividends and interest and all of that. So, and again, clients with sizable brokerages have sizable dividends. So like, there's a lot to consider. You really gotta, like, that's why I don't know. I feel like it's an art. You gotta like make sure based on what's happening in all these accounts and where you're pulling, you're keeping in that tax bracket, which based on where my clients like to spend, most of them are in the 22, 24. So, but I don't want them jumping to the 32. I don't want them paying net investment tax. I want to avoid the IRMAA adjustment, right? Like I feel like there's so many gotchas with our complicated tax code that you have to plan this out. And I feel like retirement planning it's an art because there's also just so many variables with like risk tolerance. And I don't want my clients that are in financial freedom worrying about what's going to happen in the stock market or what's going to happen with tax rates.
All right, let's finish up on talking about Medicare. Kind of give people an action item. There's two things. One, if you have got an IRMAA adjustment, let's say your premium went from mid $70 per month up to $150 something a month. That recently just happened to a client of mine. Yes, take 2 minutes to just sit there and say, that sucks. But also look at the numbers. You're going from 77 something a month to 150 something a month. We'll just play with those numbers. Yes, it's more than double, but we're talking about $75 a month. For the majority of people that we work with, that is easily absorbed into a budget. It's a rounding error for a lot of people when you're talking about $70 a month. I'm aware it's not for a lot of people, but I'm not going to go down that road. But also, you may want to look at, okay, that's great. I do have Medicare. Is there something with my Medicare coverage that I didn't like last year? So let's leave the premium aside for a second. Did I go through a medical event and I'm realizing I don't have the coverage that I thought I did? That's what you want to focus on when you get to open enrollment, so the fall of 2025. And then you want to work with a broker to actually figure out, do I have the best Medicare plan for me? And mostly you're looking at Medigap coverages or your state coverage that you have. And you figure out, can I move to something different that will provide me better coverage should I go through a similar situation again? So put that on your calendar. If you need a Medicare broker, hit me up. I have one. I'm sure Heather does too. They will be able to take you through the scenario of, here's what you have, here's what you could change to if you wanted to.
And please don't just rely on Medicare. You need to have a supplemental policy because I think you're exposed. I think off the top of my head, Dave, check me, but I think it's like 20% of medical expenses. So Medicare covers 80, supplemental covers the 20% difference, I believe. And it doesn't cover very long hospital stays either. So, I didn't go review all the Medicare coverage right before this call, but I mean, supplemental is like non-optional for my retirees, you know, and we love giving client examples. So I actually want to go back to the IRMAA adjustment really quick.
Sure.
One of my clients retired and they sold a property. So it greatly increased their tax return, their tax income for that year. It was very, very sizable, and it put them in the IRMAA adjustment. And they were married, so it's sizable, right? But there's actually something where you can file a form. Sorry, forget what the form is today. But you can actually say to Medicare, like, hey, that was a one-time event, and actually this year my income's going to be X, and I got the IRMAA adjustment removed because I basically said, like, that was a one-time event. This year they're not going to have that income, and we saved them the IRMAA adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
So a small win.
It is. Yeah, that's the important thing. I think should you go through, and some events qualify, some do not. But it's also just worthwhile sending that paperwork in, see if you can get that adjustment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm aware we could have talked about stuff to optimize retirement going into 2025 for hours. We're not going to spend hours. So we're going to move on. We're going to go into what would you do? I'm going to cover some questions. Heather, do you want to read the first one?
I do. I'm a 62-year-old male, need to take money from my IRA to supplement my income. I have about 90% in ETFs and 10% in a money market, basically cash. How do I best structure this for my monthly withdrawals? Withdrawal from the money market, take gains from the investments, and leave the money market alone. Oh, I mean, I already you wanted this. Oh, I just like, oh, it's just so fun. It's just so fun.
So we've talked about bucket strategy. That's one way to design income in retirement. So if I was talking to this gentleman, I would pretty much have the bucket strategy working because it just says there's an IRA. So I'm going to put that IRA into buckets. So it's going to be a couple years of living expenses in cash that may be more than is there already. And then we're going to split the rest of it into bonds, fixed income, and stocks, or stock ETFs that's diversified across the world. Then it's going to be just that. How much money do you need from the IRA that year? That's going to be 1 year in cash. Is it the same the next year? Great, we'll have that amount in cash. And then we're going to fill that cash bucket every year, either from what I do. I fill up from a short-term bond position, and then the rest of the equities start to fill up that bond bucket. Heather does it a little differently, but we're pretty much talking about doing the bucket strategy, and that then puts it in very concrete terms of where's my money coming from? It's coming from cash. I know exactly what I have. Okay, we're going to question 2. I retired 6 months ago and I am struggling. I am 65, single and female, but I've worked since I was 15. I don't know how to adjust to this new period of not working. What advice do you have?
Oh, I'm actually happy this is one of mine. So when I moved to London, I know this is crazy. You're like, where are you going with this, Heather? But I was a stay-at-home girlfriend, right? I didn't have a job. I went to follow my boyfriend, which was crazy, something I thought I would never do. He's now my husband. But I didn't have a job. I didn't have friends. And honestly, I got really depressed. Everyone's like, aren't you loving that you get to go to these museums and get to go shopping all day and all that? No, like that gets old after a week. So you need community. That I feel gives a huge sense of happiness in financial freedom and retirement. Find a community. And this is really weird, but this helped me a lot. You have to get out of the house every day. I don't care if, and you have to have something on your calendar every day. I don't care if it's you're going to Pilates. I don't care if it's you're going to lunch with a friend or a walk or a hike. Get into something with a community. Have something to do every day. Find a purpose. These things lead to happiness, and do some soul searching and find that. And, you know, the worst thing you can do is do nothing. So try things out. Maybe, I haven't tried pickleball, but I don't know if pickleball would be for me if Dave and I went to the court, but try it. Maybe you'll love it. If not, then go try golf or try Pilates or try yoga or join something, but just try. And That's my advice.
I like that.
Should I read question 3?
Do it. Do it.
We are 68 and retired. We live off pensions, Social Security, and cash that we saved in the latter part of our careers. Combined, our traditional IRAs are worth $2.1 million. We know that in a few years we'll need to take money out of for RMDs, but we won't need it for our lifestyle. What do you suggest we do? Oh. Go, Dave. Go.
Do you remember Scrooge McDuck? The cartoon?
Yeah.
Where he has the bank vault and he swims in money?
Yeah.
That's my suggestion. Question answered. Moving on. No.
You want them to swim in the money? Like go to the bank, get a briefcase of money, and then just swim in it in a room?
Sure. Actually, have you ever thought about doing that? I've thought about getting, not $100 bills, dollar bills, and just like laying them out on the floor and like doing snow angels in it. I thought it'd be pretty fun.
Can we do that?
And then
one? Can we just hold ourselves accountable, and then like how much do you think we need to really make that? Do we need to go like get 10,000 each from our bank accounts and get some dollar bills? I really want to do this. This is fun.
10,000 bills to do snow angels. I don't think
if I do something, it's go big or go home. Like I don't want just like 100 ones sitting on the floor. That's like wah wah. Like we need to like maybe like $3,000. I don't know.
I think this is a Mr. Beast video. If you're not familiar with Mr. Beast because you're retired, that's okay. Go look him up. He's fun. Anyway, to answer the question, in a few years, you're going to need to take money out for RMDs. You're not going to wait for a few years. You're going to start now. Mm-hmm. The reason being is that 2.1 million, by the time you're forced to take money out at 73 for your RMDs, that 2.1 is going to be worth a lot more, hopefully. Mm-hmm. That is going to push you into a minimum tax bracket that you're not going to be able to get away from. So let's start to reduce that balance now. And start taking the money out, and you get to control what tax bracket you hit for the time being until you hit age 73. If you're not going to need it for your lifestyle, well, there's only other 2 things you can do. You can save it and you can give it away. With a traditional IRA, you can do a qualified charitable distribution where you do not have to take the money for yourself.
Yeah.
Shush. I'm giving the answer. You can give the money directly to charity. You do not take it. It does not hit your tax return as taxable money. You are limited to a dollar amount per year, but it just goes straight to charity. If you're not charitably inclined, then give it to whoever you want to, but you will have to pay the taxes on it when you take it out.
Yeah. I also wonder, I'd want you to ask that question that we started this podcast with. What was it like? How is retirement looking like how you wanted it to? And if their answer is yes, great. But what if it's no? Or what if it's yes, but? And then we find something for them to spend that money on, right? Like how many times has that happened for you? Where, I don't know. That would be a fun case.
A very deep question. Like if you ask someone that question, you better be prepared to have a real conversation or the conversation to get shut down fast because someone's not ready to talk to you about that. Because it puts someone in that vulnerable position.
I have to ask the question though. Like that's, I feel like my job. If I don't ask those questions, I'd rather know. If they want to shut me down because they're not ready, completely understand. And that's also, I feel like the weird part of our job is when do we push? When do we let them back off? When do we push? When do we not? It's another art. But I have to know I asked the question. I have to know that I did my best. So I'm going to ask it. And I know you're going to ask it.
Do it.
Do it.
To finish off that question number 3, if you are finding yourself in this situation, there's a book called Die with Zero.
Yes.
Read that. It's all about giving all your money away before you die. That's the cliff note. You're dying with zero, essentially. But it's going to take you through that exercise of where is it going? Why is it going? what's going to fulfill you, fulfill the person on the other side. It's going to take you through all of that and help you understand exactly what's the best way for you to spend your money before you pass away.
Every time my financial freedom clients come to me and they go, I want to leave a legacy, like when I have a new one, I go, hold on, read this book, then come back to me and then we finalize the plan. And after they read that book, it always changes. Always. Mm-hmm. Such a good book.
It's a good book.
It's a good book. All right. Highlights.
Okay, we're going into highlights. This is our personal win or your top part of the week or whatever you want it to be, but it's not about work. You're starting, Miss Townsend. Take it away. Sorry, Mrs. Townsend.
I think my family's finally healthy. I'm gonna take that one. I think last episode I shared that my daughter got pink eye. Well, then the pink eye went to everyone else in the family. I got it the worst. Like, I know it's, I mean, hey, anyone who's watching this, you can see what I look like without mascara. I'm showing up without makeup today. So I'll throw that here. But point being is my win is I think, and I'm going to try to keep our household healthy because it has been a month of us having some kind of flu, fever, pink eye, kid hitting her head and then throwing up from like, I think she might have a concussion. I mean, all I can say also is my personal win too to end it is I am so grateful that I have a medical concierge doctor. Like, I don't know how families, like, I am just entirely grateful. I'm like, the antibiotics, doctor, aren't working on my eyes like they are on my other family. Oh, you probably need another antibiotic. If I had to go to a doctor's office and like sit through that, I just get to go on my time. She fills it right away. It is amazing. I couldn't recommend it enough. Okay, that's my win.
Good. Anytime someone says pink eye, I'm like, you have poop in your eye. And I just squirm. And I'm like, that's gross.
Do you know that is the word I hate the most in the English language? So don't say it again. I despise it. No, don't. I literally despise it. And no, I did not. I got it from my daughter. It was the bacteria. And yes, do I think she might have had the number 2 word in her eye? Clearly.
I've never heard someone react so badly to the word that shall not be mentioned again on this podcast.
Okay.
All right. My personal win for the week. We decided to sell our house and move.
You found the house?
So
you found us?
Not yet. The inventory is very low. So no. But
your house is on the market right now.
We have the paperwork to sign in our inbox, which then triggers off. Okay.
Hold on. Talk. No, but I have to understand this for how risk averse you are. You are going to put the house on the market without having another house picked.
That's the way you have to do it, apparently, because if you're contingent, you are seen as a preferential buyer if you have the contract and inspection already done on your house.
Yes.
So we have to go through that first. But apparently there's a new contingency in real estate contracts, which allows you a longer, I'm missing the word, period, where you can go and find a house. And if it doesn't work out, you can back out easier. I'm not expecting for us to do that.
Longer escrow?
No, it's like longer contingent. I don't know what the word is.
Okay.
The realtor explained it, and it was in that meeting where I was just trying to think of all the questions I should be asking and then follow along in the meeting. And after the meeting, she was like, that was the quickest meeting I've ever had. Well done for that. I went to bed like wiped out after our meeting because I was just, when you're on for like an hour and a half and you're just like trying to be all in. But yeah, we have those contracts to sign. That then triggers off, okay, we need some rooms painted, then cleaner will come in, then the photographer will come in, then it will get listed on the website, and then showings will happen. We have not done this before because we have always not had to sell a house in order to get the next one, just through bizarre situations. So in order to be in a contingent situation to move from a house to get a house, we are there stress-wise because we have not done this before. So, fun times, as well as it being tax season. We did not think this through.
That is actually horrible timing. I just thought, like, it's just like if there's a sound you could put on this podcast, but like, the boom, like right when you say that, like that's literally what like came into my head when you said that. I was like, oh dear, I feel for you. I actually hope, I'm going to put good vibes to you, that it actually works out, because I'm so happy. I feel like when I talked to you last year, when we got really close to get set up for this podcast, you were just kind of in a place of like, I'm good. You called it content, and I said content was bad, and you said content was good, and it was really interesting. But now, since then, I would not say you're content anymore. That is not a word I think you would even use. And I feel like you're just on this like, let's go. And I love it. And I'm so happy for you. And I'm going to hope that you guys find the most amazing next house. Like I really do. And I'm like, I'm a little jealous too, because I'm not taking that risk right now and I want a bigger house. So I'm going to just watch you go through it and tell me if it was worth it.
You're going to live vicariously through me and just watch what happens.
Yes.
Good or
but
bad.
Know that I'm rooting for you, right? Like know that
okay,
I'm truly rooting for you. Okay. So like keep us posted. And I am thinking all good vibes.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be sure to let people know the intricacies every single week of the process.
So
I'm sure people can't wait.
I have one question. House sells. Haven't found one. Don't tell me you're moving in with like in-laws, or like, are you going to go rent somewhere that's furnished? Like what, do you have a contingency plan? You're a planner. I imagine you have a contingency
plan. Tents in the park. I'm going to go live in a storage unit. I don't know. I haven't got that far yet.
Wow, you are more ballsy than I thought in that way, because like me, like I make fun of you. You're more risk adverse, but now like the more I'm getting to know you in this process, I'm like, maybe I'm actually more risk adverse in some ways. I would have the whole thing mapped out. I'm like, well, we're going to go rent here in this Airbnb and it's going to cost this much. And then I'm going to put the gains in this thing. Like, yeah. Hence why probably I do my retirees in a pretty little bow once a month. Definitely a control freak.
All right. We need to wrap this up.
Okay.
So, all right. Thank you for listening to this long episode of Playbook of the Wealthy. You can find us on whichever platform you listen to podcasts, and the video version of the show is on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to send an email to the show, you can contact us at hello@playbookotw.com. And we'll see you next time.
Send in the questions.